Hi, this is Dave, Fell Running Guide. Welcome to another navigation task. We've got another one where we've got to compare a photograph and a map, work out where the photograph was taken and identify the two features circled in red. So that is the photograph, and the map we're using today is the Ordnance Survey 1 to 25,000. So that is the map that we're looking at. So let's go back and have a more detailed look at the photo to start with. And what can we see? Well, we're on, looks like high ground. The ground drops away immediately ahead of us. It looks like it might be quite steep actually, just as we go ahead, and then it drops down and looks like it kind of plateaus out and then drops into possibly a stream here before going steeply up the other side. We've got some woods extending from centre of the photograph away to the left, downhill or downstream, and then up on the crest of the hill beyond we've got some rocky ground, scattered boulders towards the top of the slope, and then there's an obvious feature that we're looking for circled on the, looks like the high point. And then as we look along to the left, the ground drops away, this shoulder or ridge dropping down that way there, and then beyond high ground out into the distance beyond that. So some of you might recognize this photograph if you did the task a couple of weeks ago. We were looking more further to the left of the photo down there. So that's a photo. Let's have a look at the map. So we're looking for a point where we are looking down across possibly a stream and then up the other side, steeply up the other side, to a prominent high point. Well, we've got some high points here. We've got a trig point there. I don't know how we could be looking up to that without being off down the bottom of the map here somewhere, so we can discount that one. What about this trig here? Could we be looking across towards that? We've certainly got some trees here, so we could be somewhere on Littlemore. If we were there looking across, we'd be looking uphill all the way up here, and the photo doesn't show that. It shows us looking down and then up the other side. And also here we've got, as we get to the top, we've got a long flattening. So this high point here is probably, I don't know, 400 or 500 meters back from the break of slope here, so that might not really fit with what we're looking at. What about looking over this side? Well, we've got a high point here, but again, that's quite a way back from this break of slope here. So I don't think we're looking from here across to it. What about this high ground here? Could we be looking across from Rocking Stones area, past these trees, and then up to that high point? We've certainly got this rocky ground here to the right that we identified in the photo, and we've got this shoulder of ground dropping down here, and then beyond and into the distance we've got, or off to the left, we've got high ground, but the higher ground that we're looking at is probably over off the map there, but this certainly fits here, doesn't it? So we could be on this steep ground here somewhere, looking across this stream with the trees, steeply up the other side, rocky ground, and possibly that point there being the feature that we were looking for. So if that was the case, would we be able to see this stream leading up towards that high point? So it's a spring emerging halfway down the slope, Horse Stone Spring, draining down very close to this tree line here, the end of the trees, draining into Stainery Clough. So can we see that? Well, there's the tree line, that's the last little tree there, and then we can see we've got this feature here going off and in. So that makes sense because it goes off and in and probably emerges there, leading up towards that high point that we were looking for, which would be the horse stone up on the high point there. So that makes sense. Now that's given us a little bit of a clue as to the second feature circle that we're looking for. Now some people said they thought it was this horse stone spring, and at first glance on the photograph you might think that, oh, you know, there's a feature there, we can see some, like maybe a drainage line coming down out of it, and it's very easy to jump to conclusions and just straight away say, yeah, that's it. But if we look in more detail, then we can rule that out, because the first thing is the proximity of this feature draining down to the end of the woods. We can see that it's quite away from the end of those woods, whereas the feature on the map is very close. And also the feature on the map, if we were to walk up it and carry on walking up and over the top, it would lead us to the feature circled in red, that horse stone, and this one doesn't, does it? It leads us up over more to the right hand side into this rocky ground, whereas that one there would lead us up to the horse stone. So you can see what I mean there. If we were to walk up that stream, up and then carry on directly up that fall line, it would take us into there, and it's very close to those woods. That other feature that we were looking at was more over this way, leading up into this rocky ground. So it's not that horse stone spring. So if it's not the spring which is there, then what is it, or where is it on the map? Well, it's higher up the slope than the spring, and it's hard to see on this slope, but on the map the contours start to steepen or get closer together as we go up higher towards the top, and it's below this rocky ground here and in amongst these scattered boulders. So let's have a look. We'll actually zoom in on the map a little bit here and have a closer look. So we know it's higher up the slope than Horsestone Spring, and we also know it's in this rocky bouldery ground here, but there's no real change in the contours, there's no indication of a landslip or anything there, so the feature that we're looking at isn't mapped. So we can estimate that it's somewhere in here. We can't be absolutely precise. There's a nice little trick that we can use to see where it is if we use Bing Maps. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but I'll just show you how we can use it. So this is Bing Maps, and what we can do is swap between Ordnance Survey and photograph. So there we've got the aerial shot, and we can go to Ordnance Survey as well. So what we're going to do is, if I just right click over the point that we're looking at, in this case the spring, I can add a drawing pin, and then what I can do is go to the aerial map, and that shows me exactly where that spring is in the landscape, and you can see just up to the right of it here, that feature there is that landslip. It's quite distinct, isn't it? We can zoom in maybe a little bit more, and we can see quite clearly that landslip. So what I can do there is put another drawing pin on that right over that landslip, and then if I go back to the Ordnance Survey map, then that there is that point that we were looking at. So it's just above the index contour there. So that's just a little tip, a little trick we can use with Bing Maps. So we've got Horsestone, we've eliminated this Horsestone spring, and we've identified that other feature in here. What about where was the photograph taken from? We need to work that out now, so let's have a look at the photograph again. So the first thing to note is we've got some looks like fairly steep drop immediately ahead of us down to this area, which continues to drop away down to what we think is a stream and then up the other side. So we'll have to find a slope dropping away from us on the map. So if we're here, or maybe up here, certainly here, the ground dropping away as we look over to the northwest that's fairly flat to start with, and then it drops away. It looks like we're on an immediate slope, so I would say we're more in these tighter contours along here somewhere. So let's have a look. And the other thing we can do is use some known features to draw a line. So we know that this is that stream just draining down from Horsestone Spring. Here's the end of the trees. So if we were to go in a straight line through those and up the hillside at the other side, then as we're looking, we're just emerging on where the slope starts to flatten out, just on this point here. Here we've got the steepening going up, and then at this point here it starts to flatten off, a gradual rise again to maybe that point there, and then flattens off. So straight line through the end of the trees up just to the top of this shoulder there. And the other thing to note is that this stream, we're not looking directly up it, we're more looking obliquely onto it. It's draining from top of it, top right down to bottom left as we look, so we can work out, have a look at that on the map. So there's the stream. So we can't be down here because we'd be looking directly up that stream. We're more obliquely over, looking at it with it angled top right, bottom left. So there's that. And then we were talking about if we were to go in a straight line through just the end of these woods here, that goes up in a line just to this area here where the shoulder flattens off. So we can see steep ground, steep ground, steep ground just up to here, and then it starts to flatten off. One more contour and then in. So if we were to draw a line back through those 2 points, it would put us close to where we are. So somewhere along that line. If we're out here looking along it, looking along the end of those woods up to the left hand shoulder with the Horsestone off to our right. So the answer is the photograph was taken from this green dot here, Rocking Stones, looking over to Horsestone Boulder on the hill opposite, and then that feature circled wasn't Horsestone Spring, it was an unmapped feature at that point there. So those are your answers. Hope you got it right. Hope you didn't fall into the trap of immediately thinking it was Horsestone Spring. I know some people did. Hope that wasn't you. And if it was you, then hope you looked at it and thought, oh crikey, yeah, that's a mistake that I made. Anyway, that's all from me for this week. Look out for next week's navigation task. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.